Hi, welcome to Money Confidence. I'm Crystal Oculee. I'm the Chief Financial Strategist here at Confidence Wealth, and every week I try to bring a topic to you that has been on everyone's mind, or at least in some of the meetings that I've been in. So one of the conversations that I notice, it's something that's uncomfortable for a lot of people to discuss, which is in a sense the same as when you think about a trust or a will or power attorney, and that's because you're always thinking of, the subject we don't want to think about, the beyond, right? Nobody wants to think about when I'm not here, and they don't like to have those conversations. However, it's really important to discuss some of those elements. And I'm going to just focus on how it really affects the surviving spouse when it comes to taxes. And that's something to also watch out for. So a lot of times you hear stories that even though the couple were doing well together, and if something happened to one of them, even in the retirement years, I'm not even talking about working years, because working years clearly, then it's a devastation, right? Because let's just say if both of you were earning income and you're putting kids through school and things like that, that could be significant and hugely impacted, which is why a lot of people use life insurance to offset that. But I'm not even referring to that. I'm talking about the moment you're retired, where you no longer actually are thinking about that because your income and all of that has been set in place, because now you are retired, living your dream life. But the things that you need to consider is, God forbid something happens to one of you, then what's happened is that the surviving spouse is left most of the time with this one Social Security. If you're both receiving Social Security, one Social Security income is gone. The highest one is staying. But here's the big but. Now, when they have to replace that income, so let's just say, let's just pretend there's $30,000 of income gone, okay? If that $30,000 of income is gone and you have to replace that with your own money, if there's pre-tax dollars and you're replacing that by taking money out of the IRA to compensate for the loss of income, now the surviving spouse is under a single income bracket. Can you imagine what a huge impact that is and how quickly they can run out of their IRA? This is the reason why you sometimes hear these horrifying stories that the widow ran out of money, within the 10 years of the actual unforeseen death that happened much earlier. So that's the reason why a lot of times this is happening in the stories you hear. People think maybe the surviving spouse wasn't, financially savvy, or they didn't do a good job managing their funds, or they spent way too much. The truth of the matter is, most of the time, that's not the case. They're spending the same or sometimes a little bit less when it comes to their needs. But what they're doing is taking a lot more out, because now they have to compensate one loss of income, and they have to compensate being single income tax bracket, because they're going to pay a lot more on taxes. So they have to liquidate a lot more of the IRA. So this is something a lot of times people just don't think about. And it's important to think about it, because if something like that happens, how are you going to fulfill that particular income need? So let's just say if you have enough assets, so maybe there's enough assets in place that there is no need for life insurance for that time in your life, and you're happy with everything. But what you have to do is think about what is going to replace that, and how much of it would you deplete. And by the time estate planning comes into place, when the second spouse is gone, are you happy with the result and the remainder of that money if something like that occurred? Because sometimes people have it in their mind that they want a certain amount to be passed on to their kids, or if more of it is depleted based on these things, maybe they would like to have another plan in place. So example, if you're retiring from your work and there is life insurance that sometimes they give you that you can take and it's reasonable, you may want to rethink that and say, maybe I don't need to give it up, even though I don't need the life insurance aspect in terms of really replacing a big portion of the income, but that can actually replace maybe Social Security income that may be missing if something happens to one of you. Or it can replace some tax consequences of taking more money out of the IRA, because that portion will be tax-free. So if both of you are, stop working and there is insurance that you had paid for years on, rethink the strategy of just giving it up. Look at the math and see, is it reasonable enough to utilize that to be able to pay for some taxes if needed. A lot of times people don't understand, even in their own planning, some of the things they already have that exist and how to utilize it. It's not just necessarily about the simple thing you think about. It's sometimes a lot more complex than that. That's why taking a look at holistically everything together can really help you achieve much better results and really understand, why do I have certain instruments in my portfolio, the purpose behind it, and how it will be utilized. Now, let's say that's not even an option. Well, how about an option of making sure you have a Roth IRA or some Roth conversions along the way to make sure that money has grown tax-free. So if there's a need of taking more income out from one spouse, they don't have to take, 30% more to pay for taxes or 20% more to pay for taxes, because if they're going to use their Roth IRA money, there won't be any taxes they have to pay. So they can still continue the same process that was planned if both were here versus if one is here. So there's a lot that can be done with that. So if this is a conversation you haven't had with your team here, or if you're listening to this and you're new to Confidence Wealth and you want to have a meeting to discuss it, you can do that as well. But I just want to make sure that these are conversations that coming up whenever you meet with your team at Confidence Wealth, to take a look at that and say, what are those missing elements? These are some things we talk about a lot, especially in the beginning of the planning phase. But I know some people get uncomfortable and they kind of way off of it. But I just wanted to kind of encourage everybody here, when you're listening to this, that it is really important to think about these things, because I know, especially as a married couple, you care about each other and you want to make sure your partner is taken care of. Now, again, the reason this really was more for the married couple is because of the fact that replacement of income and taxes changing. If you're single, it's a little different because you're already planning on just yourself. So you don't have to think about these other extra elements. So, it really, every family has its own challenges that they have to face and make sure that they're taken care of. So that's it on this topic. If there is anything else that you want to talk about or something that you think it's important that we haven't discussed, please post it to me and I'll be happy to talk about it in the next week's session. Have a great one.